Hey there, so do you remember when SyFy was actually an entertainment escapist network? I do, I remember that. I remember Farscape, for example. Dominar Rigel going out and entertaining me, a Jim Henson puppet interacting with some guy from Australia as they blaze their way through space trying to get away from the peacekeepers. Good stuff there. I also remember Battlestar Galactica. In fact, I was reminded of it when they were talking about Star Wars here because, it's The Last Jedi stole one of their major plot points about running from someone that's chasing you, only they did it in a very poor manner that I could barely tune into for an hour, not entire seasons. I also remember those movies that could be mind-numbing, entertainment, they could actually be entertaining, or you could just stare at the screen and let an hour or two pass. That was always fun. They could always be counted on, too, to earmark certain holidays. In fact, my wife and I, we would always watch at least one episode of, say, a Twilight Zone on there because that had been a ritual forever. They used to be something that I enjoyed. Then, a few years ago, they decided that they would go into identity politics. They would actually go down that rabbit hole, and they would showcase where the fandoms should be. They started preaching on this pulpit, too. They started pandering over and over again. And, well, you can see exactly where that goes. We have seen from gamers, for example, Brianna Wu being spotlighted by them. She was brought out to talk about how she was harassed, even though, she harassed herself, and even though she actually paid someone to go through her Twitter feed, because that's the type of person that you deal with here. But yeah, those terrible pro-doxing victims, yeah, they are terribly, terribly harassed. Also, of course, we heard about the comic skaters and the terrible comics people out there, because apparently attacking fandoms, that's the way to play. And that's what you're talking about here. You can see this racist, sexist ideology, coming out and being transposed atop a fandom. And people, going out and embracing it. And of course, somebody that's out there that wants to blame other people that don't want to actually support identity politics within movies, of course they're going to brand it this way. Because if they don't brand it, if they don't deflect away, we might actually talk about the truth there. And the truth is that SyFy, it isn't an escapist platform. Star Wars, it's not one. Comics, it's not one anymore, and so on. These things, once you stand on the pulpit and you preach with a hammer, people start walking away because it's no longer subtle and it's no longer fun. But anyhow, let's look at this article. Star Wars has a white male problem. So you can see where they're going to start in talking about harassment. They start with Kelly Marie Tran. And now I like this because of the way that it's worded here. They talk about her deleting her Instagram account. This presumably came after. You like the word presumably, so they throw it out with evidence, even though you don't know exactly why it came out, but presumably it's because of fan harassment. Now, Daisy Ridley, 2 years prior, apparently deleted her Instagram as well after coming out as pro-gun control, and then they throw out the one angry commenter replied with, "Just shut up, Ridley, and make another Star Wars movie." Oh my God, I tell you, you can have an opinion on something, but people can't have opinions back. That's an amazing platform. Yeah, I like that there. Then for the past 6 months or so, the director of The Last Jedi here has faced nearly endless abuse on Twitter by those who can't get over their dislike of the film. Maybe when the guy's out there too, maybe when he's trying to tell you that you're an asshole, and maybe he's telling you you don't count, he loves to block people out there, and he insults people over and over again, maybe that guy isn't somebody that should be interacting with a fandom. That worked out really well for Ghostbusters, didn't it? It worked out really great. In fact, it worked out really well for Star Wars too, didn't it? Now then, we of course get to hear about Chuck Wendig here, the guy that went out and compared Star Wars fans that he doesn't like to rat turds on a fillet or pubes in a salad. Yeah, that guy, he's such a good dude there. I don't know why people wouldn't like him. Incidentally, the books that he's responsible for in that too. I actually went through part of the first one there, and this was before all of this stuff. So I actually didn't have my perspective colored by, his attitude or mentality out there. And it was awful. It was awfully written. Choppy sentences, terrible work. It also, now I actually would not pick up the Darth Vader Annual #2 because of this guy. It just came out. I would never, ever pick that up. And here we continue. I actually wanted to get through all of that here. And what I thought was funny, actually, at the end of that is they talk about a satirical T-shirt came out, that said blocked by Chuck Wendig, and he said he's going to lawyer up because, he's such a fun guy. But all of this happens in the shadow of one of the biggest franchises in pop culture hitting its first financial stumbling block with its underperforming nature of Solo, a Star Wars story. Some of the fans are quick to take credit for the film's slump by claiming it's a sign that their Last Jedi boycott has worked. In between such proclamations, this subset returned to their favorite debates like whether Rey or Jyn Erso or Mary Sue's and how much The Last Jedi and the prequels raped their childhoods. I love when you go into and you add a quote, but you don't actually quote anything. You just throw it out there like that's some context that you're pulling out of thin air. Yeah, they said, oh, it raped my childhood. Well, who exactly said that? Oh, well, we don't get that. But hey, let's put that on somebody. But continuing here, it would be unfair and too general to say that Star Wars has a fandom problem. What it has is a white male fandom problem. Now that is some racist tribe. Congratulations, Star Wars, and congratulations, SyFy, because you know what? When you're talking about one of the largest demographics out there that consumes things like this, when they walk away from something, well, you've done a great job there. If you're going to get 10.3 thousand shares with this too, I wonder how much money you cost something because you throw that out. I wonder exactly how bad you hurt a brand because people, they get tired of it and they say, yeah, I don't want anything else to do with that, and I don't want anything else to do with SyFy Network. But continuing here, fan entitlement is not unique to white men, nor is it exclusively a Star Wars problem, but the way it is manifested in this particular community is deeply revealing of such a mindset. Star Wars has made great leaps and bounds in terms of diversity, but as Dr. Becca Harrison's recent study revealed, none of the movies have managed to have complete gender parity in terms of speaking roles. Even The Force Awakens, the film that seemed to kickstart this notion of the death of the white man in Star Wars, only managed 37%. The death of the white man in Star Wars. I swear to God. It's like these people go out and they look for any racism that they can hurl some way, and they know it's safe racism. In current year, it's okay to be racist toward, and it's okay to be sexist toward, and it's amazing to see this on display. If you changed up any of these qualifiers, can you imagine how that would read? If you talked about how, we have a black female problem, or if we had adding other qualifiers, if we said had a homosexual black female problem, can you imagine the flip out? Can you imagine the apologies that would come out of these networks? But hey, when you turn down that BuzzFeed style, when you go down the Gawker road, I suppose this is what we see. But continuing here, yet this is enough of a majority for these toxic fans to cry propaganda and claim their Star Wars is over. The mere inclusion of women and people of color is enough for them to claim foul and claim they're taking over the franchise. Yeah, terrible stories, actual propaganda out there. For example, if you go out and you look up feminism in Star Wars, look at some of the articles that you pull up. I mean, even the titles with this, The Last Jedi is the first properly feminist Star Wars. Star Wars, the Feminism Awakens. Basically, you love this or else. And people get tired of that because that type of brand is the same type of brand that brings you this type of mindset wherein you can dump on people because of gender and because of race. And still, people are supposed to go out, and they're supposed to engage their money with that fandom. It's ridiculous. It's beyond absurd. But continuing here, being a fan can be a wonderful experience, one that unites you with similarly passionate people and nurtures your creativity. It can introduce you to lifelong friends and spark ambitions beyond our wildest dreams. It can also harbor the worst of us, coddling us at our most reactionary and telling us we're always right and nobody else can appreciate that story or music or art as well as you can. It can breed a unique kind of paranoia, one that insidiously whispers to us about how nobody gets quite like you do. It and the like-minded people around you encourage you to protect the thing you love because its purity will be diluted if it's forced to change or welcome in people who just don't get it. Eventually, it coaxes you into viewing fandom as a competitive sport, and if you lose, your identity will turn to dust. Now, one of the things talking about, bringing in people that would enjoy that, welcoming in, geek culture welcomes anyone in. The problem with the people that are coming into this, some of them don't actually participate at all, but the ones that do, they say things like, well, I enjoy that, but you know what I need? I need this. I need a safe space here. I need you to change up the way that you approach this. I need you to actually add different types of characters. That story, it doesn't really work out. Basically, I love everything about it except everything. That's the kind of approach that you get. And it's amazing to hear that. I mean, it is totally amazing to hear it. And when you give blowback to that, well, of course, you're some type of monster. Continuing. So Star Wars stops being special once everyone loves it, and once it stops in exclusively centering white men as its heroes, because Rey doesn't look like a real hero, and neither does Finn or Rose. I swear, the spin for this. I wonder how much money these places actually get for this type of spin, because that SyFy, they have to be reaching in that Disney pocket and saying, hey, does the mouse have anything for me? And I'm sure it does. Continuing here, though, these characters and ideas weren't around when the film was in its infancy, so obviously they don't truly belong there. Suddenly, the fandom is bigger than ever and full of people who care about things like representation, but they weren't there when those true fans were, which means they don't belong. We're talking about something in outer space with aliens and whatnot, right? You're talking about inclusion, and we're talking about something in a galaxy far, far away. We're talking about a stage that is set with so many races and whatnot that are out there, but of course we can't include that because, the mindset, it only looks at this narrow focus of qualifiers. It doesn't look at the quality of character or the caliber of storyline. It just looks at those identifiers. And if people promote them right, well, of course, everything's A-okay. It's funny, too, that they talk about how well this is being received. Even though we've watched, within 5 years, we have watched that needle for profits, edging away and away until we had our first major flop. Within 5 years, Disney has managed that. I think that says quite a bit within that. But continuing here, they have to be shown their place in the pecking order, be they naive young fans or the actresses getting the attention on screen. So you can't have an opinion, basically, or you're showing somebody their place. You got to love that there. You have to love how people talk down to you, too, within this kind of stuff. Nothing good comes from defining oneself exclusively by our pop culture preferences and hobbies. There is nothing to gain or learn from when we see ourselves only as receptacles for consumerist goods, regardless of how artistically worthy they are. The toxicity of white maleness in fandom spaces forces such figures to pretend they're the true victims. So you can say shit like this and then say, yeah, but you know what? You're actually the abusers. You're the abusers out there. Don't pretend you're the victims, you sexist white male bigot assholes. I mean, you look at the way this comes across. This is a terrible optic to have attached to anything. But continuing here, while the internet was in an uproar over the treatment of Tran, the podcast Rebel Force Radio, long criticized for its misogyny, tweeted that they had contacted Lucasfilm for a statement on Star Wars creators attacking fans and inciting the fan base. It takes a serious level of arrogance seconds to play that card while a young Asian woman has been run off the internet by that attitude of self-victimization from fans. So, basically we can have all of the people that you named at the beginning of this. We can have Chuck Wendig say all of the things that he noted. We can have Johnson come out and basically get into embittered fights with people. We can have these people, creators going out, book creators and on, attacking and attacking and attacking. And yet, oh, poor Tran there, whom we don't know exactly what transpired with, well, that says you can't say anything. You can't have an opinion. And when these people go out, and are basically pushing you away, you can't actually contact a company and say, this is what I demand. Otherwise, I and a lot of people are going to walk away. Nope, can't do that. That's how you end up in 5 years with a failure. And that's how you're going to continue to have failures. This kind of stuff here is pro-propaganda for Disney. That's what we're reading here. This is propagandist at its finest. I've been looking at other articles too, like ones that are from Wired talking about comic books that read the same way. But continuing here, you can see this, the hive of scum and villainy playing the victim is truly the most impressively ironic thing I've seen today. So it's talking about that. You actually think that this is a good optic there. Congratulations on that. And here they mentioned Rick and Morty fandom and how terrible they are. I'm not even going to go through that and look at that because I think that it has nothing to do with it. Rick and Morty fans are beyond pretentious. And in fact, I would even say that you had this influx of fans that came in after something got really noticed. And, when those people came in, well, they remind me of what we're talking about here. You can see how they want to combine that with the way that McDonald's and the sauce came out. If you want to know more about that, you can look it up. But man, I hate to look at that. The Last Jedi haters position what they do as critique, but there's a world of difference between reviewing a film and running an actress off Instagram because you don't like her character. Anyone who can't or won't tell the difference is part of the problem. So do you think that Wired was part of the problem, or CNN was part of the problem when they went out talking about Jar Jar Binks and how it's a racist stereotype and whatnot? Do you think that actually had something to do with it? And of course, looking down through here, look, you have Leslie Jones brought up with Ghostbusters because it's the same type of thing. You have people that go out and that war on fandoms. You have directors that go out. They want to call them out. And when there's failure, well, you've got to shift that focus. And you've got to blame the fandom that didn't want to spend their money on that because you're not allowed to have an opinion. It's amazing how far culture has gone with that. When we talked about the prequels, for example, you could go out and you could talk about, someone like Patton Oswalt, for example, brought up putting Lucas's head on a stick or on a pike. People, how they reacted to that? Yeah, bravo, good show, good show. Now, of course, if you talk about things, if you say these characters are artifice, they do not belong within that, well, of course, you're a monster somehow. You're a terrible monster. But stuff like this needs to be called out repeatedly and with great force. We are long past the point where ignoring the trolls was effective, and to pretend to do so merely empowers the bullies. Yep, this isn't bullying. This isn't a bully platform at all, is it? We have seen what happens when these supposed minorities of fandom communities, once dominated by angry white men, decide to launch a concerted harassment campaigns against those with apparent political agendas that they accuse of ruining their childhoods. We saw what happened when the extended public humiliation of a woman by her ex-boyfriend. See, we got to get in the Gamergate shot. You see the Gamergate thing? This is where SyFy is now, just to say, as a channel there. We saw the aftermath of the racist and misogynist who hijacked the Hugo Awards in protest. So yeah, they were saying that you can actually rig the Hugo Awards, but nope, can't talk about that. Can't actually do anything within discussion. And of course, we see the Ghostbusters brought up here, like I was mentioning. The pattern of behavior is nearly identical every single time this happens happens, and yet we all act surprised when it does. Then you need to be able to support these things yourself, because as people walk away, this should be a platform that Disney expects to touch everyone, to actually not only reach in and actually touch what you want as far as escapism, but to touch your wallet as well. That should be the aim. But instead, you put in all of these other things that this is supposed to be, and you make superficiality part of it. You make qualifiers the thing, because everything, when we're talking about talent, well, no, we got to have this, and we got to have that. We got to put this into the storyline. And you know what you end up? You end up with a jumbled mess like we saw with The Last Jedi. But continuing, this entitlement seeps through the pores of our culture and is repeatedly legitimized as being just how fans behave. This is not normal. This is not what fans do. To lump in the young women who found a new hero in Rey with the grown men who are cheering trans exit from Instagram does a major disservice to what fandom can achieve at its finest. So basically, you have two camps here. You have the young women that found a hero in Rey, and you have these angry white men, because that's the way that it's going to set up. There is no way that abuse like trans Wikipedia page being edited to change her name to Ching Chong Wing Tong as describing her as a stupid, autistic, and retarded is rooted in anything other than racism and misogyny. I see. So when Mary Sue went out and called Timothy Lim a white supremacist, do you agree with that then? Because if you do agree with that, well, then you're probably going out and doing the same thing. But if you don't agree with that, then, what exactly does that mean? But continuing, this has nothing to do with being a fan. This is the obsessive screed of toxic white masculinity under the guise of a hobby. Man, I tell you, it's like you have to go get a PhD in buzzwords. Really, to even be able to talk about this stuff. But continuing here. Star Wars is not what it used to be, and that's a good thing. In the 21st century, under new management and appealing to a wider audience, a more diverse audience, the franchise has evolved. Really, when it evolved, what kind of money is it making? If you take away the first movie within that, where people are excited because there's a new platform, we haven't gotten anything in a while, and you know what we get? A reboot? How well are things doing? Really, you should ask yourself that. It's casting and creative ensembles must reflect our world. Man, I heard this statement thrown out at Monty Python. They were talking about the people there, and they were saying that they don't actually reflect the modern world. In the modern world, you have to basically put this assembly line together, because those guys, they were just, a few white men from wherever. That's the way that was worded. That's how that goes. That's the kind of mindset that this stuff breeds. Not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it's good for art and business alike. A whole new generation of fans will get to experience these stories for the first time, to find heroes they never thought they could have before. The rest of us will get to see these heroes of our youth in new ways that may not always delight us. Han Solo gets old. General Leia will leave us soon. Luke Skywalker became proud and scarred, and his actions were not those of a hero, of the heroic, rather. Yeah, those were basically terrible storytelling choices through most of it. But hey, what do we know? We just have indulged in that through our whole lives. I sit here, I look at the Rancor across the room from me. I look at everything from Bosk and on, but I don't know what I'm talking about, because apparently I'm just that part of that white male demographic. The one that you want to ignore, but ones that actually buy products. That's why everything is just languishing on the shelves. Why you can't actually move toys and on, because of this type of mindset. But continuing, a large chunk of The Last Jedi is about calling out the hot-headed wannabe heroes of Poe and condemning how he assumes he knows more about the situation than two more qualified women. What exactly do those qualified women get done? When you're on your escape pods trying to get out there, ships are firing at them, people are dying. How exactly did that work out? How exactly did you get in this situation? How many people are left at the end? If it wasn't for Luke going in and actually actually coming in and holding some people off, how many people would have been left? There's your question. If you want to talk about qualified people, if that's qualification, well, color me on the side of the fucking empire, because you know what? I want to be alive at the end of the day. You know, Poe is an idiot too, you know, because he is written by an idiot. But those people, they were idiots as well. But you see them as qualified women. Continuing, it's perfectly fine and understandable to not like those creative choices made, but it must be understood that the franchise is not enshrined property of a minority group who hate change. A minority group. So you say that, you know, it's toxic males out there, toxic white males, in fact. You call that a minority group, and yet a movie falls on its face. Is that really the action of a minority group? But of course, they didn't help do that. That's going to be the same thing with comics and on. When you see industry languishing and they use words like this, well, you see exactly what kind of effect that has, because people, they don't want this in their escapism. They don't want people preaching to them. They get sick of it, and yet here we are. Continuing, the quality that used to define the outcast, geekiness, a love of sci-fi, a love of trivia, are now what bind the majority of movie-going audience. Everyone is a geek now. Everyone is not a geek now. You know what you've had? You have people that are basically, you know, they've never seen this kind of stuff, and that's fine. But they want to go in and they want to change fandom. They want to come in and they want to say, you people over there, make way for me. And when you make way for me, of course, you've got to capitulate to all these standards. One of those standards, of course, is you have to agree with my racist, sexist tirades or else. And, of course, we need a dumbing down of media. We need it where we have an explosion after every set piece. We have to have some of the decisions that are made to be the dumbest known to man, because you know what? Somehow that works out. And, well, if you have a problem with that, if you speak up about it, well, you're some type of monster here. So anyhow, they talk about how anyone can pick up a shirt, or how anyone can have a Star Wars game on their phone. But continuing right here, that seems to scare this toxic subset of fandom the most. The idea that the thing they ardently believes make them special is actually something everyone possesses, including young women, people of color, LGBT plus fans, and so on. So, you know, those people that actually disagree with you, they don't actually have that agency. It's only the people that are out there that agree with this narrative. If you disagree with it, well, you're toxic white men. It's ridiculous, but that is the byproduct of not only sexism and racism and on, and utilizing a formulary to back it up, where you say you have to have privilege, you know, power, Pringle, pretzels, whatever that you throw in, you know, to actually be those things. But, I mean, it's a mindset that it basically promotes identity politics and pandering overall. But continuing here, in reality, Star Wars was always for everyone. There you go. It was always for everyone. You know, a lot of people understood that at one time. We could actually lambast things like pod racing and so on. But now, of course, you can't do that. Continuing, but now online fandom and wider media coverage means these poisonous fans can't ignore that, even before the film stopped exclusively positioning white men as heroes. There you go again, like taking your poison barbs. Rather than share it, these fans seem dead set on destroying the very thing they claim to love so much. Did fandom destroy that, or did Disney, some heartless corporation coming out and selling you on buzzwords, did they destroy that thing? See, this stuff, like I say, it is all fluff and banter. It utilizes buzzwords, but essentially it is pro-propaganda for the Disney Corporation. It's amazing to see people out there writing that. I hope seriously that they're told to spin it a certain way, and that this isn't their mindset, because if it is, well, congratulations, you just bought into a very effective marketing campaign for a very shitty subpar version of Star Wars. But continuing here, that's not the mindset of a fan. That's just a garden variety bully. I think I've been tuning into one of those. Oh man, of course we're going to get the dust your shoulder off. What a dumb thing too. But continuing right here, Star Wars fans fandom can be a truly beautiful thing, but the rot that is festered at its heart thinks that to white male entitlement and gatekeeping is ruining it for everyone. White male entitlement and gatekeeping. You know, I see this brought to me by the SyFy network, brought to me by the mainstream media. You know, the same places writing all of these articles with power and prominence, brought to me by Disney, a giant corporation out there. But yeah, you're the ones gatekeeping. Good deal there. Continuing and finishing, the sad thing is that seems to be what these fans want. We can't let that happen. To quote Rose Tico, yeah, that's how we're going to win, not fighting what we hate, saving what we love. Maybe that's what fans out there that you're talking about, you know, the wallets that used to open for every piece of merchandising, maybe that's what they feel like. They're actually trying to save what they love. They're trying to do that from a company that, again, brought you a reboot for the first entry, basically went and neutered another entry that could have been a war film. It might have actually been interesting when you looked at that, but of course they couldn't have that because it doesn't market very well within that. And of course, then we see The Last Jedi, which is just a compounding mistake after compounded mistake. It's just ugly. But anyhow, tell me what you think about this stuff. I am amazed that I see this kind of tripe coming out of places like SyFy, but then again, maybe not. Maybe SyFy, you know, as we see cable dropping off, maybe this is the reality of it. Maybe you have to go out and promote things in this manner, you know, that Gawker style, that BuzzFeed style, because, I mean, really, where is cable anymore? I hope that's what it is anyhow. I hope it's them just trying to stay relevant and people don't actually believe the things coming out of their poison pen. Regardless, this turns people off to SyFy. It turns them off to not only the network, but also to SyFy generally as an escape platform. It definitely turns them off to Star Wars, gaming, and so many things because, hey, you know, if you speak up, these people, they try to silence you. That's why you can't be quiet about it, because you can't have these people out there that want to promote, again, a poisonous mindset saying this is how things have to be or else. But anyhow, tell me what you think about this. Thank you.